My name is Asad Lalji. I'm the CEO of Avid Learning, and we're delighted to be here today. When I first heard of Ahtushi's book, Padmini actually introduced us, and I was just fascinated by the images, the story, and what she was trying to do. So that's why we are here, and thank you all for being here. I know there's many things happening, and thank you to Rajesh for his generous hospitality and hosting us all here this evening. Ahtushi, congratulations on this book. I mean, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. It's got a foreword by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to start with. It's been the finalist for the Banff Mountain Book Award. It's also on the shortlist for many other book awards. So congratulations. I think we'll just start by talking about why Ladakh and why now? I mean, your connection with Ladakh began in about 2006, but it was only 2011 when you saw your first, or you experienced your first petroglyph. And it's been a 10-year journey of documentation and going and many, many solo trips on these, very challenging terrains and, cold deserts to document this. So what drew you to this project? And could you share a few highlights of this travel and what you've experienced?
Thank you, Rajesh, and thank you, Asad. Well, I've been a trekker all my life. Since I was 21, I've done over 50, 60 treks in the Himalayas. So the challenge of the terrain wasn't the real challenge in this case. But also to find something that I did not know about, most people didn't know about. And more than that, I think I was just fascinated that in a high altitude desert like Ladakh, which is so harsh and inhospitable even today, people had roamed these places when there were no roads, come across high passes and left their imprints via this art on the only canvas available to them, which were the rocks. Because this predates history, this predates organized religion as we know it, it predates organized society as we know it. These were hunter-gatherers, and so it was just fascinating, the spirit of these humans, the resilience of these people, and the fact that the human species has had this instinct to produce art, to leave their impressions with such beauty, with such finesse, on such an ungiving surface. I think that so much of it, there was so much of it that I can't really fathom why it intrigued me. There's no one answer. But the terrain, the people, the locations, out of the way places, the challenge of finding it. I think I've always loved challenges in life. So, this was sometimes I kicked myself. Why did I take on this subject? Because they were hard to find, the locations were difficult. Sometimes you came back with nothing I came back with nothing special. And, but yeah, I think in a nutshell, that was the attraction.
But, you probably had tens of thousands of images you have, shot in the course of this decade plus of your documentation and exploratory. So how did you go about choosing, or what was the rationale, vision for choosing the images in this book, which is spectacular? I've had a lot of fun reading it, and also for this show.
So basically it also took so much time, it took more than 12 years putting it together. And many visits, many revisits, because I wanted to pick out the special petroglyphs, and the distinctive ones. There are thousands of them. So it was a challenge. It's like, you curate a show for a museum or a gallery. This book is a curated collection of petroglyph sites from all across Ladakh, from different regions of Ladakh. I wanted to represent each one of them. Ladakh at one time was one of the largest districts in the country. And so it's a vast region from, high passes to Changthang to Kargil, Zanskar, the entire region. To cover that took time, and then to find representations of different types of petroglyphs, different styles. Because I've looked at it as a photographer, what drew me was an artistic imprint. If I would like to quote Picasso here, when he saw the caves in Spain in Altamira, his first reaction was, beyond Altamira, all is decadence. What have we created? So while today we assume that we have come from we have actually progressed, but has art really come from simple beginnings to more progressive forms, or was it the other way around? And besides that, art of each era, society, times is art in itself. It's an artist kind of tries to make people try to make sense of their environment, It's that visual medium, even the belief systems that came up, the religion, organized religion that came up later. So we don't even know what they meant. What motivated them to create art on stone, such an ungiving surface, where error correction is impossible. And to create it, each gallery had the imprint of a different artist. So you can make that out in the styles. And Rajesh was telling me, why haven't you signed the pictures? So I was thinking, I don't want to leave my graffiti on this art, which is what I'm trying to tell everybody, because we visit them and we kind of scribble on these images. So yes, style, distribution, creative range was the criteria, and representing all the different regions.
Thank you for that. The petroglyphs you've documented are essentially part of nature's open air galleries, scattered around some very, very challenging, terrains. Now, as a seasoned trekker, you just mentioned the 50 to 60 treks you've done in the Himalayas. How was the documentation of Ladakh different and more challenging?
Well, it's high altitude, it's a desert, the extreme temperatures, and winters go up to minus 40 degrees. And mine was a self-funded trip, so I did choose the colder winter months. And I was a good 10 years younger then, but could tolerate those things. It was fun, I've spent nights in tent at a frozen lake. And so it's very challenging, and I think the people are so hardy that looking at them stay there, you forget that it's challenging for you. Because if humans, when they didn't even have a habitation they have today, I think we barely scratch our potential. We have become so comfortable as a society that we don't really know the potential we have as human beings, I think there is so much more we can do, and so much more. And I think when there's passion, when there's excitement about something, all these things become, they're not important. But yes, it's challenging. The rocks are challenging to shoot more than anything else, because the surface, the patina of the rock shines. So normally the lovely light of Ladakh, which is great for gorgeous pictures because of the rarefied atmosphere, is not conducive for this kind of photography, because it has a mirror effect. So therefore I use different styles, techniques. I did a lot of night photography, and I use reflectors. So I use photography techniques. My objective as photographers, you want to make your subject look good. So since I was chosen for this task, I got down to it.
Those night shots are stunning.
Thank you.
No. Hopefully these photographs will make us look good. But, you mentioned that you would knock on strangers' doors and just stay with them just to stay the night. I thought it was quite cool, right? So anyway, the petroglyphs are, our ancient heritage. They date back several thousands of years. And many of these are vanishing due to environmental and human factors, for lack of better words. You mentioned that many of these petroglyphs you photographed are now non-existent. So do we have any knowledge on how old these are in the terms of antiquity, and is there a real threat to these sites, and are you the evangelist who is now raising awareness for them and their preservation also on a global scale?
I did always want this work to be an enabler for conservation, and I think I have kind of become a spokesperson for that in an inadvertent way, which is great. And I think the book is doing that job by highlighting it. Sadly, yes, a lot of it has gone, and while we can't stop development, You can't say that we should have roads and they shouldn't have roads and things like that. There are a lot of models that we can emulate, in other countries where they have protected these sites. And there is awareness coming up now, and it's happening slowly. But some sites are being relocated. And even more important is the awareness to not scribble, find them and not scribble one's own stamp on them, that's a bigger threat, because then the artwork is gone. So, yeah. They are now. They are now. They are fencing some of the sites, and they are coming into the tourist net. So I think the locals are the best, yes, because it belongs mostly in their land. And it's slowly coming in. Yes, a lot of work is gone, but Ladakh, being Ladakh, it still remains one of the least inhabited places. There are vast tracts which are still not developed, and there's a lot happening. There's a lot more that can be done, and I really hope it's because what has lasted for millennia has depleted at a very fast pace in the last 15 years. A lot of the sites that I've photographed don't exist. So, which was always, it was a very heartbreaking moment to see that. And it's changing now. And yes, the locals have been fantastic. I used to go to these out-of-the-way places and just knock on doors, because there were no homestays and hotels. And beyond Leh, Leh is the main hub everybody goes to. And people were wonderful, I think sometimes often it's an advantage being a woman, because you are not perceived as a threat and you're welcomed, So they would open their doors to me and they would give me the best room, and a lot of my photography was thanks to that. Or I would just picture my tent up somewhere. And
Wonderful. Your book's title is Speaking Stones, which refers to the ancient engravings as a form of visual language. Now, we all know that art predates language, right? And in your book, you've quoted Desmond Morris, and it says, "It is as if human species was incapable of being artless, regardless of the material circumstances." So what kind of visual telling styles, motifs that caught your eye? And are there any global similarities? Because you've seen these other parts of the world besides Ladakh. Are there any global similarities in these?
that's a lovely question, because rock art is a great leveler. Because all over the world, rock art is the oldest expression of art by human beings. And all over the world you find similarities, which shows that human beings, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, have expressed their emotions in similar ways. Like they are also what archaeoastrology calls, they are astronomical symbols that are similar to the ones recorded in Utah and Arizona and in Ladakh, from way before Columbus discovered America. So, it shows that our, because we are also a species with the same, reaction to everything. So rock art actually shows a lot of similarities and hunting scenes, because you see, at that time, man had brains, but no brawn. Even a wild dog can bring you down. So hunting, coming to, figuring that you could, with a bow and arrow, bring an animal down, survival was more important in those times. So to think that, art actually played a role at a time when you would imagine survival would have been more important is so intriguing, that the instinct to express, irrespective of material circumstances, like Morris quotes, he's an art historian, and that's the perspective I lean on more, because scientifically also there is not much proof as to how old they are. We have, by stylistic analysis, we know they are 3,000 to 5,000 years old. Because Ladakh, what also petroglyphs show is that Ladakh was connected to regions beyond its borders from way before the Silk Routes. The Silk Roads are still relatively new, but everybody talks about the Silk Roads. But the high Sasirla Pass, where I've documented some petroglyphs as well, it shows there are certain petroglyphs with similar stylistic analysis as those found in Central Asian countries, where more documentation and more collateral archaeological data has been put together to date them as up to 5,000 years ago, belonging to the Bronze Age. So the that data is valid for Ladakh as well. And direct dating is not possible. It's full of error. I mean, there are dating techniques. Firstly, none have been done, but they are very error prone. Scientists don't really, adhere to them. It just can give you vague ideas. But and besides the rock surface itself, it wears and tears. But still, they've lasted thousands of years because of Ladakh's terrain. You know, the rarefied atmosphere, the dry, there's no moisture, and lack of habitation and development.
You also said the handprint was universal.
Yes, the handprints are one of the oldest pictorial literacy known in rock art. And they're found all over the world again, perhaps the first signature. And that was the first site I saw, actually. These were, very delicate hand impressions on a rock. I could barely see, and they appeared like in a very ghostly fashion, and it really caught my eye. And half the rocks were falling into the river. And beautiful renditions of, so many, as you'll see if you go around the exhibition. I'd love to walk you through it and explain or answer more of your questions.
It's our old biometrics. But anyway, looking at the petroglyphs images in your book, the engravings reflect a deep connection between the people and their environment. I mean, Ladakh, above all, entices you, is addictive in nature. Did you get any, was there a spiritual connection between these?
Yeah, I think definitely, there is something that connects you, that draws you to nature the way it does. I think all of us trekkers, mountain people, connect because of that connect we have. Like me and Rajesh have also connected just because of trekking and, all of that. And I think this art was made, these artists made these right in those locations where I stood and saw them. They weren't like something brought out from somewhere and put into a museum. So I would certainly say some energy connected on that level. And I love wide open spaces. I love open landscapes. I've been a nature lover all along. So definitely. I think also it pushes you in the moment. It's like climbing. There's nothing else that's ever in your mind than what you're doing at that time. And I think as humans, we are always fighting that monkey mind. And being with nature, being in these places, you're so into it that you forget yourself. I think that's the exhilaration, that's the spiritual connect, and that's what draws us. And somehow this human imprint fell into that whole picture as well and had the same impact. So definitely spiritual in many different meanings and ways.
But, besides the spiritual part, I mean, this journey you've traversed with some, personal story of adversity. Would you like to share any of that at this point, or should we go to the next question? I mean, during this process, it wasn't just documenting; it was also a way of you healing, or it was therapy for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had some challenges, and I went through some health crisis and during this period. But I think being so passionate about and so engrossed in this subject was so therapeutic, and it really helped me chug along, because this was that the disease and all the other things just faded in the background, and this was just priority. I think that involvement, that passion, and a lot of introspection, and yes, healing, of course, suffering comes to all of us in different ways. So it's like how you take it, how big you make it or how small you let it be, and let the other wonders of life and the other magic of life play out more, instead of that, word which scares everybody so much. So it's like, why die before you die? You know, let's enjoy the today.
Wonderful. And before, would you like to take some audience questions? But before I open it up, so I mean, you have your show in Paris coming up in November. I mean, the book's going to get some more awards. You have more shows happening other parts of the world. What's next in this journey of Speaking Stones?
Oh, I have no idea actually. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, I'm just going along with the flow of things. This exhibition, this idea of this exhibition came barely a month ago, and it's here. So, I just nod along to whatever comes along, and it moves along quite well that way. I think when I plan too much, it doesn't quite work out very well. It goes better this way. So yes, I'm excited about Paris and showing it over there. It's a 2-month exhibition. It's supported by the city of Paris and the Himalayan Rock Art Database, and they have invited me for this work. And yeah, it was real fun doing these. I wanted to show the first show to be in India before it traveled. So Rajesh's offer to do it here was fabulous, and it's absolutely awesome.
Very disappointing. Anybody has any questions, or we'll go ahead with the formal launch of the book?
Usually one little that one has read, usually one hears of petroglyphs in caves. This is, I'm sure you've done a lot more research on this, but this is in the open. So are there a lot of petroglyphs in the rest of the world which are in the open, which were...
In similar desertic landscapes, yes, because the Himalayan, the geology of the Himalayas doesn't allow for caverns much. So therefore, most of the rock art is in caves. In other areas of India, like Madhya Pradesh and all, it's more pictographs, which are in caverns, And in the open air, you can't have pictographs. It has to be because the paint would get washed off. It wouldn't survive as well. So in Ladakh, very few caves. It's mostly, open air, lots of rocks. It's just a landscape of rock, like, some, sculpted by nature, and the rest imprints left by humans.
So how did they make these, how did they carve these out? Do we know anything about what they used, what instruments they used? Did they put pigments inside, or...?
No, this is just stone on stone.
Okay.
So the canvas is the rock surface, which is called desert varnish. It is formed by a process. It's formed by a process of iron magnesium leaching with carbon dioxide. It forms over several thousand years, which is the casing on the rock, which is this bluish, brownish surface. When the artist scratches or pecks on it, it reveals the lighter surface beneath, therefore creating the necessary contrast required for art to be visible. Hence, they chose these as their canvas.
And it changes over time.
Yes, the repatternation starts all over again. So the rock surface starts, the older petroglyphs start merging with the back.
Hi Ahtushi, good evening and congratulations on the book. So from the look of it, it might just come across as a photo book, but if you go through it, you realize the immense, I would say, decade of research that has gone through, and that too multifold and multidisciplinary in terms of art history, cultural narratives, the scientific analysis part of it, and just to make the meaning and sense of it. So could you just throw some light onto how this collaborative effort came together, the research correspondence that you were in with while working on the database, those things, some angle on the collaborative research aspect of the great work. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I almost deserve a PhD with the amount of research I've done. I've become half an archaeologist. I became a member of academia, and I did because being a journalist, I also was curious about what the scientific community was saying, while visually I was attracted simply because of the visual content of the work. But it was interesting. I read a lot to basically come to the conclusion that nothing is particularly conclusive. All the same, we have stylistic analysis. And but yeah, what you were asking is how did it come about? So by a lot of research and papers, I think the maximum time this book took to put together was the research part of it. Because for me, the main objective was to wrest it out of academia. You know, the main reason most people haven't heard of these is because it's just been lying in the, academic world. And actually history and all these subjects are, barely a little more than 200 years old. So I wanted to bring it to the common person and to actually, bring that research into common language so that it could be understood by everybody. I think that was the most challenging. And then I was also in touch with archaeologists in France, and whatever papers were there, I imported a lot of books from around the world and read up a lot on this. So that was, it was a lot of work on that front. A lot of research with maps too, because I have maps in my book for each region. And none of these places are near habitation. So, placing them, and it's been a labor of love. And it shows how we are multi-potentialites, There is a lot we can do. And a lot of people came around to help me. I had the help of my friend Viraf Mehta, who's an anthropologist, who actually introduced me to this subject. There were people in Ladakh, who shared with me some site locations. And I think doors just opened and it just transpired. And I'm really happy it's finally happened, because it's been quite a struggle bringing it together.
We can be safe to say that AI didn't have anything to do with this book.
Just on that, sorry, no. Did the research drive the images? Was it happening in parallel, or did you have the photography done first and then the research, or was it sort of a parallel? No, no, just.
No, the research didn't drive the photography.
No.
No. And
You discovered these things and did the photos anyway.
there's very little research if you really look at it. There's only one person who's done a PhD on the rock art with some of the locations, and they are mostly just the names of the sites. So even scientists, the thing is, it's a state of non-interpretation, because we have absolutely no idea what they mean, except for, when it comes to signs and symbols and inscriptions, then it becomes, you can try and decipher them. But when it comes to imagery, it's like, whatever connect it makes with you. All they can say is stylistically, like there's a Central Asian style, stepic style that is prevalent. So it gives the idea that these communities have moved through, but it doesn't tell us what the migration patterns might have been like, but the styles give us that idea on the scientific level. But again, there are a lot of disagreements in the scientific community itself. It's like a Tower of Babel. The archaeologist doesn't agree with the anthropologist or the art historian or the historian. So I think assimilating all of that and coming to a safe space of saying what I've said is in digestible bits is the best I could have done with this work.
Say that your book and these images and your having collated them this way is going to actually provide a foundation or a stepping stone to a new dialogue or discussion on this, which you say may not have existed before in terms of research or a cohesive understanding of the subject.
Certainly, I think that's why the public has responded rather well to the book, because at one time people thought that, oh, it's an esoteric subject, and my whole objective was to bring it like any other art form to the people, and they have loved exploring this new aspect of Ladakh because of that. So it has opened a new chapter and a new interest.
I
Just wanted to ask, how do the locals relate to the petroglyphs?
So when I started it, then not at all. You know, they were mostly not even aware of it. And what happens with the, religion is whatever is prevalent today becomes the most important thing, and everything kind of gets wiped out, no matter which religion, and whether it's Buddhism or, uh, any religion. So what is beyond that and before that somehow is not important enough. And I think that's why it was really nice to have His Holiness's forward, because for me it was also important that it would make Ladakhis know and feel the importance of it, because they are the true guardians and custodians of this work. And so now they are aware of it a little bit. Me and some friends, we helped one of the rock art places become a sanctuary, which can be visited by people today. And there is, awareness is trickling in. And I had a local Ladakhi girl at my talk, and it was really heartening to hear her say that, it's nice to have this book to have them more aware of their ancient heritage, that what it was before. See, Ladakh's history is full of loopholes and inconsistencies. We don't know anything beyond the last 1,000 years, which is such a rarity. India is such an old civilization, and we know so much more. Our history is so rich. But here is a place in this, the Trans-Himalayas, that hardly anything is known. The known history was written in the late 15th century. And that too, so in retrospect. And then there's oral history. So actually petroglyphs fill a lot of gaps by sharing how many other cultures have influenced Ladakh, from, it wasn't like many say like the little Tibet at all. It never was. And these are some of the things petroglyphs are proving.
Thank you, and congratulations once again for this wonderful book. The books are up for sale, so I encourage you to buy them. They're on the other side of the wall. And I think now to the task at hand, we're going to invite Tasneem Mehta to formally launch this book.